Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Tried and Tested podcast. I am your host Tracey, and if you're not familiar with my show, this is a dating and relationship podcast where we talk about all things about love, romance, marriage, breaking up, making up, children, anything that is involved when it comes to a relationship. And so today we have a special guest, my dear friend Jared. Say hey, Jared.
Hey, Jared. No, what's up?
All right, so thank you so much for being our guest today. So without further ado, the topic for today we're going to be discussing is the preparation that men should or do make before they get into serious relationships. So even before I get into the questions, do you feel like that's something that's important?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important, but I also feel like sometimes things happen, you know what I mean? So, sometimes you might be trying to make preparation, you should, or you might be chilling, waiting, but, you might just fall in love at a time that you're not really ready for it. So, either one. But I do think the preparation should happen before.
Okay. So, and this is obviously preparation for serious relationships leading to marriage, I should say. Because some people can be in a serious relationship and it's not going nowhere. So, just want to clarify that. So, my first question, all right, so my first question is, do you feel that men should live alone before they get into a serious relationship?
Live alone, like you mean like by themselves?
Well, it could either be by themselves or it could be like with a roommate. But do you feel like a man should be living with his family before he gets into a serious relationship, or do you think he should be living on his own some way, somehow, renting a room, renting an apartment, or even having like a one roommate? Like, what is your take on that?
Well, for me, I don't see the difference in living with a roommate or living with family, because at the end of the day, as long as you financially stable, I think that's really what the question is. I don't think the living conditions have much to do with it, because you could have your own crib and have debt up to your eyeballs, or you could be living with your family and be saving money. I know in some cultures, people don't even move out the house until they get married. But in our culture, it's like if you a certain age and you live with your family, it's kind of looked down on for whatever reason. But I think the overall aspect is not really the living situation. It's really the financial circumstances. I do think that you should be financially stable before you go into a serious relationship, just because, if you'll be able to help that person out, and they should probably be the same way too. I think it should work. I think that, I think that you should be mentally stable. I think you're emotionally stable, financially stable as much as possible before you step into a situation, regardless of who you're living with.
Interesting. So I don't know. I feel like I don't think that it's just about, what did you say? You just said it doesn't really make a difference, but I feel like it does. And it's not, I think the living situation, if you live with your family, maybe you are saving for something, maybe you have a goal, or maybe you're the one helping your family out. But at the same time, if we're talking about serious relationships going towards marriage, it's like you would have to know what it's like to kind of be on your own without your family, especially if you are going to go into a situation where maybe you're going to start dating a woman that you may want to take seriously. You don't think that that's important to be alone, to be away from your mom and dad or whoever? And I'm not talking about renting a space in your family home, FYI.
Well, I don't see the difference. And for me personally, I don't see it, because I've done both. I've lived with my family and I've had a roommate, and I don't really see the difference in I guess the day-to-day routine. I mean, if you're living with somebody, you're living with somebody, whether it's your family or a roommate. At the end of the day, I would personally, I feel like, I don't know, you probably, what's the, maybe, I don't know, say for instance, you paying 500. You living with your family, and your mom like, all right, you a certain age now, you gotta pay rent or whatever. Okay, so you paying like, perfect example. Like I got younger sisters, or even a younger brother. He paying like $300 a month for rent. He could get a roommate and pay the same amount of money because down south, he probably get a nice spot for $900 a month. Go get two roommates and he living by himself. At the end of the day, it's the same amount of money come out of his pocket. So my
but
thing
you're
is,
talking
it's
about
like,
money. I'm not.
Okay, so explain the question to me. I'm saying, but this is my thing. I'm leading up to saying like, my thing is like, I will feel like, all right, at least you at home and you helping the family out. I mean, I don't think that living on your own necessarily, like being by yourself, is really that much of a difference for me. I don't think that there's much of a change in how somebody should act, as long as they're being responsible. I think that's kind of like the threshold, not necessarily like, okay, now that you live by yourself, like you're going to make all these discoveries about who you are and all of this. I think that's really just comes with maturity. I think you're going to maybe, I don't think that you should. I think that you should be in the space of a responsible and mature mental space more so than having a living experience by yourself.
I don't know. So for me, right, as a woman, I feel like because I live by myself, I feel like it would be very strange for me to date a man who, let's say, is in the same age group as me, because of course age plays a part in all of this to some degree.
Yeah.
It would be very strange for me. In order for me to see you, I have to see your auntie, your mom, your dad, whoever, when I come to your house. Or because you don't live alone and I live alone, you have to always come to my house. So I just kind of feel like as far as dating wise, like, I mean, living alone or with a roommate, anyone that's not necessarily like your parents, it allows you to be in a situation where you can be comfortable, right? If you're dating someone, like, I don't want to be, like, basically, let's say I'm dating you and I don't necessarily want to meet your family just yet. Or some people are very protective over their family and nobody meets their family, right? So it's kind of like, in order for us to be in a relationship, it's like you only have to come to my house. I can't go to your house. And you a grown man. Like, so that's sometimes there's different types of living situations. There's situations where, let's say you live with family and you rent out a portion of the house. Some people have mansions and they have the guest house for themselves. So, you could be in the same vicinity as your family but not necessarily live with them. But years ago, obviously at that time I was still like living with my mom, like I was in college. But it definitely makes it difficult, especially when both parties are living at home. But we are talking about men preparing for serious relationships, because it's kind of like you have a relationship, but somebody's parents are watching you. And I think that's very uncomfortable. I think a man, in my opinion, of a certain age needs to show independence. It's not really about the finances. Like I said, it's just more or less because you can be responsible or irresponsible no matter where you live, but that's kind of the angle that I was coming from. Like, when you are living in a serious relationship, you're not just going to go from your parents' house and then we get married and boom, now I already live alone. We're moving into a house together, and then you have your family house that you are used to, and now we're coming into the same space together. I feel like you need time apart to figure out who you are a little bit more. So I'm guessing that do you agree with that or no?
Well, I think that, I agree with that to a certain extent. But I think that where you coming from is more of a personal thing, because because you talking about you don't want to see somebody's parents.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is like, you might not have to see their parents, like, what if they, like I said, like, what if they got like a portion of the house or something, they got the side entrance or whatever, like, you know what I mean? And it ain't really like, so their concern ain't really necessarily like, oh, I got to see your parents, because it's like, you might not, you know what I mean? Like, you might walk into somebody's house and they living with somebody else, but you don't necessarily know who it is. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, I feel like, as far as like a responsibility thing, like they could be on the same level if they taking care of the same, finances. I only say finance because I think being able to manage your finances shows a certain type of maturity. Like I do think maybe you need to spend a little time away to learn who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like having a roommate could kind of be just as weird. Because what if you a man and you got 4 roommates, and that's very possible. You know what I mean?
I said one roommate. I think I made that clear. I said one roommate, like not 4. But okay, so here's my next question to kind of go with that.
Go ahead.
Do you feel like men should live alone by a certain age? Or do you feel like if I'm 40 and I'm about to get married, I can stay with my parents until I'm 40? Or do you feel like, okay, once you hit, go ahead.
No, yeah, I feel, in my opinion, living with parents and having a roommate is the same thing. It don't make no difference. You're not financially able to stand on your own. Like, it don't matter. You going over to see somebody. It's like, yeah, like at the end of the day, like to me, it don't make no difference. Like I don't, you know what I mean? I keep it funky. Like I live with my not my parents, but my family right now. Like, yeah. But it's not because, I'm financially able to live on my own, but at the same time, like, I would just be with a roommate, you know what I mean? But
let me clarify. I'm sorry. Let me clarify the difference between living with your parents and living with a roommate, right? When it's with your parents, I feel like those are your parents. They gave birth to you, right? And so it would not make a female comfortable to be hanging out with your parents, whereas your roommate, let's say, you guys, like a woman can build a friendship with your roommate. Like, it's more casual. It's not it's not so high stakes, I would say. And not only that, like living with your parents, you probably don't have to clean the bathroom. You probably don't have to cook and buy groceries all the time. Whereas with a roommate, you already know, like, this is what it is. It's 50-50 with your parents. Even if you don't have it, you got to eat. They're going to, so I feel like there are definitely differences. I could never say that my mom is equivalent to a roommate that I have. It just doesn't make any sense for me. But if that's how you definitely feel, I mean, that it is what it is.
I don't. So I cook and I clean on my own. I don't depend on no meals from my family. They go out and they buy food for everybody in the house except for me. And my relatives, my aunt, uncle, they a lot older than me. So 9 times out of 10, I'm cleaning them after them. I need to help my uncle up and down the steps. So it's a different situation. Like I don't think that, and if I have somebody, and if I bring somebody over, they won't know who I live with unless I tell them, because they don't have to see anybody.
Yes, but see, the thing is that because I know where you live, I can attest to what you're saying, but that's not what I'm referring to. Like, I'm not referring to a different entrance or a way where you don't have to see anyone, because in that case, in my mind, in my mind, you look like you have your own place. Like, you get what I'm trying to say? I'm talking about if you live in your house and my mom's bedroom is here and your dad's bedroom, you get what I'm trying to say? Like, yeah, and that's what I consider living with, like, because there are people who, let's say I have a 5-bedroom house, right? And somebody can rent a room out from my house and just, that can be the room that they're renting. But it doesn't mean that they live with me per se. You get what I mean? Like, they pay their own rent, utilities.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's what I'm referring to.
So this is kind of what I'm kind of seeing it going to. Like, we can agree to disagree that, like, living with a roommate and living with parents is one and the same. Because I feel like it more so is not necessarily what you talk. The situation you talking about is definitely different. But I don't think that. I do think that before you think about getting married, but regardless, like, you don't need to have no room, no nothing. Like, you need to be on your own 2 feet. Like, you need to be, because at the end of the day, like, I don't think that you should depend on your significant other either. I don't, like, as people growing together, blah, blah, your wife got whatever, what you come with, she come with, whatever you got, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, say, stuff don't work out. It's like then what's going to happen is you back with your parents because you haven't built the foundation for yourself. Not only that, but it just shows like a certain, like, maturity, I do think at a certain age, yeah, you like as a grown man, like you should be living by yourself. Yeah, that's just facts. Like, you know what I mean? Unless it's a situation to like where, you know what I mean? Like your parents is like old, you know, you gotta pretty much take care of them. So it's like, all right, now mom gotta, you know, move in or something like that. That's, you know, that's a different situation. But I feel like once you get to a certain age as a man, like, yeah, you need to have a certain maturity before you get married. Emotional maturity, financial maturity, all goes that mental, like peace, all that has to come with it. Definitely.
Okay,
No
all right.
roommate.
So yeah, I definitely agree with the no roommate part. So you did mention that obviously in order for a man to, well, not in order, but things that a man should probably do before he gets into a serious relationship. So financially, what do you think? Because obviously you don't have to support your partner financially, but how do you feel like a man should be able to prepare for himself to get into a serious relationship with his finances?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to a numbers thing. You know, they say like wealth is, the definition of wealth is how long you able to sustain your daily life as you live it, you know, from here days on out, minus, you know, say if you stop, if your money stops coming in, you know what I mean? So say, you know, so I feel like you need, I don't necessarily know like these like substantial or like the ideal amount of wealth that a person should have. But I think that if you lost your job and then 3 weeks later it's like you panicking, you haven't done your due diligence in securing yourself financially. Maybe like I say like at least 6 months, you know what I mean, where if you lost your job, it's like you're not necessarily, you know, calling everybody to borrow money or something like that, but you know, that gives you enough time to say, okay, like I could come up with a plan to find out how I'm gonna make this work. So I feel like, yeah, if you in a space to where like, all right, financially independent, or even if you have a decent job, you have enough savings to where, you know, if that money from whatever your cash cow is, you know, it could be like some you do physically, or it could be a job that you do. If it stops flowing, it's like you secured yourself to where, you know, you can live with what you already have built and what you're standing on.
Okay, gotcha. So you need to have some money in the bank. You shouldn't be out here borrowing money from anybody that soon. Okay, so that's good. All right, so I'm going to put these two together. So obviously, like I said, we're talking about men preparing before they get into a serious relationship. So how do you feel like mentally and physically a man does prepare, or a man should prepare to get into a serious relationship?
I think you should be able to run at least like a 5:30 mile. Nah, I'm playing.
Oh my God.
Nah. I'm just thinking. I don't necessarily. I mean, physical. That's up for debate. I really have no. I really don't know how you were physically prepared to be married. I don't know. I think that you should be eating right. I feel like you are what you eat. You know, that's a whole different topic. You know, so I don't care. You know, people get married. They be overweight. They be underweight. You know, I'm not really sure how love works in that aspect. You know. But I definitely mentally preparing. I do think that, like you said, like maybe spending some time with yourself. You know what I mean? Even if that's like, you know, say you know, like I said, like I know, especially like in a lot of like Latin cultures, I know like cats like they stay with their parents until they get married. You know what I mean? Just because like that's just I don't know, that's just what they do, you know what I mean? And they help their moms out and all that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, yeah, like, you know, maybe if that's what you plan on doing, maybe you should take a trip to go by yourself to, you know, somewhere, a month, 2 months or something like that, and kind of spend time with yourself and just think about, you know, what are you actually doing, and see if it's something that you can actually do. You know, it's like, cause, you know, somebody else is need, even if you're doing everything in the house. You know, if you grew up in the house and somehow like now you taking care of everything just because your mom can't do it no more, and you grown now, and you got watching, you know, whoever the kids or grandkids, whatever. Like I do feel like there's certain things that you just learn about yourself when you spend time with yourself, even if it's easy to do. You know what I mean? You might learn that like you just uneasy without having somebody, you know, without having somebody else around it, and then that's a problem. Because I feel like if you can't be by yourself, then you think somebody else want to be with you, you know.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And then some people's parents actually like baby them and they coddle them. So it's kind of like I think that when they break away, they're actually able to see who they really are instead of being under somebody's wing and like, oh, this is my mom or my dad. They always got me, even if I stay to myself in my own house. Okay. So before we wrap this up, though, what are your thoughts on as far as preparing, like cooking and cleaning? Do you feel like it's necessary to kind of know how to throw down in the kitchen or make enough meals, you know, to sustain your wife, maybe if she can't cook? Like, what do you think about that? Or your long-term serious relationship?
I don't agree in marrying a woman that can't cook.
What you mean?
But
Wait, it's a deal breaker?
For me, I think yeah, I could cook. I mean, I ain't saying I cook my ass off anytime. You know what I mean?
Okay.
In relationship
right.
I've been, so I just feel like that's some. You know what I mean? Like it's like I want to marry a woman who didn't know how to clean. It's like people just say, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean? But I'm a clean too. But like obviously you should be neat. But in the same token, like I want to marry a woman who didn't know how to cook, because that's just. Yeah, or at least taking the time, like, you know, this is something you can't do, like, you need to work on it. It's like, we're going to get married, we've probably been together for some time, you know I love to eat, and it sounds special, because it's like what you can't get in your relationship, you might look for in other places. You might be at mom's house every other weekend because, you know, you just love that home, you know what I mean, like, you miss, like, you know what I mean, that's something that, for me, that's something that you need, but I do think that, I think it's something that both parties should be pretty apt in doing. It's like cooking and cleaning are two basic things. Like, you know what I mean? If it was 100 years ago, we would have to know how to do that stuff. It's just now that, you know, we live in a different time and era, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of, and I ain't saying you got to cook every night. I'm just saying, like, it should be something in your arsenal, like, definitely.
That you know how to
do. For both parties. You should know how to clean. Definitely, duh. You shouldn't be marrying somebody who's sloppy, because that's like just a simple thing of maturity. But I think that cooking kind of comes with it. Like, how you 30 years old and you don't know how to cook. Even, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that it should come with it.
All right. Well, I mean, I thank you like so much for this in-depth insight. You know, I really do appreciate you coming on the show today. And so I just want to say, before we get off, like, what do you have to say about this topic? Like, one last thing for the people that are listening, as far as men preparing themselves before serious relationships.
I think the most important thing is to know yourself before you get into any relationship, and know yourself without anybody else, because you could go from like living with whoever, even a roommate. It's like you're not really spending time with yourself. You know yourself before you step into any situation, and also just to be like financially secure in every way, because you know, Lord knows what happens, and you don't want to bring anybody else into that mess. So I think that's the two most important things. Know yourself and be able to stand on your own.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jared, for this insight. And before you go, if anybody wants to get in contact with you or follow you on social media, what is your social media handle?
My social media is J Reed the Grim. And J the letter, just the letter. Read, like read a book. The Grim, like the Grim Reaper. J Reed the Grim. Yeah, that's it. Appreciate you for having me. Yeah, I enjoy like listening to your episodes. You know, yeah, keep doing your thing. You sound good. I'm glad you won it.
Thank you, honey. Thank you. So, to my listeners, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking a listen today. And until next time, adios.